moment our fellow geeks, dweebs, nerds, and other unfortunates have been fervently waiting for has finally arrived. It's time for TMI, Confessionals of the Nerd Kind. And now, your hosts, Jeff Nerfherder Chandler, Jim Kaiju Baker, and Christina Yojimbo Henry. You can continue. And now, let's get on with the show. Here is TMI.
I'm all caffeinated up. I don't want to say I'm liquored up, but I'm caffeinated.
You're liquidated.
I am liquidated, which means maybe a pee break here any second.
All right, welcome everybody.
Yes. Welcome.
Yeah, I'm still getting used to actual colors. I've been black and white and then washed out with these two movies. So it's like my eyes are blinking trying to get used to it again.
It was a sight to behold. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. You would think from the titles of these movies we're going into space, but no, space is coming to us.
That's right. Although I will say there's a lot of parallels here. We do have creators. We got space cadets and our leads. Both our leads smoke a pipe. When's the last time you saw anybody? I think my grandfather may have been the last person on the planet to ever smoke a pipe.
Oh, and Jeff, as you mentioned before we hit record, tweed jackets. Was there a tweed jacket involved in Asteroid City?
I believe there was a patch or two on a tweed jacket.
Okay.
So, and just to bring it home, I have my grandfather's entire pipe collection.
Is there a licorice one in there?
There is, and I have his whole little thing. When I was a kid, and I'd stay over at my grandparents' house, there was my grandfather at night would bang on the pipe on the little glass ashtray to clean it out. And I have very, very fond memories of that noise and the smell of just that sweet tobacco. So
I have a feeling that Wes Anderson probably has a prop box that he holds out to his actors. I think the pipe would work for this one. Yeah.
I mean, we can talk about this when we get there, but the construction of Jason Schwartzman's character was very specific, and it was based on a real life person.
Yeah, there you go.
So we'll talk.
I think Jason Schwartzman is actually in that prop box as well, because he pops out for every single
He's just
Wes Anderson movie.
Waiting for Wes to call on him.
Yeah,
he's like, "All right, I need you now, Jason."
Oh, surprise, surprise! There's Jason in a Wes Anderson movie.
Yeah.
But let's get into it. Do you have any news?
Yes. Wait. So we're talking Asteroid City, if anyone hasn't picked up on that. But the co-feature is It Came from Outer Space. 1953, correct?
Yes.
So we're going back to the dawn of the atomic age with aliens and monsters. So yeah, let's get into a little bit of
Cold
news.
War fears.
Woo, a lot of Cold War fears. I think they actually take place in the same year, give or take. I don't think
Asteroid City is supposed to be 55.
55. So
but
you're right there. You're right there.
Yeah.
So, yes, first of all, I want to point out that in the last week alone, we've had 3 requests for people to join our Facebook community, which I don't know what's going on. And there's a handful of people in there. There's nothing really going on, but people are requested to join it. So hopefully somebody will start a conversation. I just thought that was interesting. Yes, let's start. We actually talked about this off air already. Pluto TV is launching a 24/7 Godzilla channel. And yes, I know you probably all own every Godzilla movie ever made on DVD, on VHS, and on Blu-ray, and you probably already have it streaming on your box. But for those who don't have all 33 plus movies, actually, there's more than that, but I think this only goes up until Final Wars, which is 2004.
Yeah, I would imagine they do not have the rights to the Warner movies.
So that's the Reiwa era? Is that what that's considered?
Yeah,
when you get into like 2016 on up?
Yes.
But still, I mean, you're talking from 1954, the original Gojira, and it looks like not only are you going to get the Japanese version, the original, but you also get King of the Monsters, which is the Americanized version with Raymond Burr.
See, all this is very well and good, but these movies are available elsewhere, streaming.
But not all in one place.
Well, Max, I think, has most of them, if not all of them.
Most of them.
Yes, but the selling point for me, as you said, being a super fan, I already have access to all the Godzilla movies proper.
Yeah.
But if they were to put out, some non-Godzilla kaiju films, that would be a real selling point for me, non-Toho, because there were a lot of splinters out there with different studios putting out stuff in the 60s and 70s.
Well, I do see that one of the options is the 98 Godzilla animated series, which is based on the American Roland Emmerich version.
Yes, I remember that show. Yeah. And again, they did not use any other Toho licensed characters, if you want to call them that. Yeah.
Right. So no mention of the Hanna-Barbera Godzilla series from the 70s, which would have just cemented it. But still, I mean, and yes, Pluto, it's a free platform, but it is ad supported. So we know that in this group, especially ads are not very appreciated. No. But listen, they're all there. Pluto is a great platform. It's free. Download it onto your smart TV. And
yeah. I never looked at it before yesterday, and I was quite impressed.
They've got Star Trek channel. They've got Mystery Science Theater 3000 channel. I mean, there's entire channels devoted to CSI. Listen, I don't pay for cable up at my condo. Anything that I can download onto my smart TV, and it's free. And Pluto's a go-to.
And I'm sure it's not on there, but I'm still waiting for someone out there to get their hands on the American international release of Godzilla versus the Smog Monster. I refuse to watch Godzilla versus Hedorah. I just can't.
No. Well, listen, if this is a success, maybe you will get your wish. Maybe you'll start seeing other non-Godzilla related monsters. I don't know. So I just thought it was cool. I actually had a couple people text me, "Hey, I saw this news and I thought of you." So just sharing it with the masses here.
Appreciated, as always.
Yes, I knew you guys were all already on top of it. Last week we were in the DC movie universe, whatever they want to call it now.
Yeah.
Apparently, Mr. James Gunn has found his Superman and Lois Lane. So this was an open casting call. It's been going on ever since they announced this Superman Legacy that Gunn is going to write and direct. And apparently we now have David Corenswet and Rachel Brosnahan as Clark and Lois.
Do you want to hear something funny about David Corenswet?
Yes. He looks exactly like Henry Cavill. No.
His maternal grandfather is Edward Packard, who created the Choose Your Own Adventure books.
Really? There you go.
Yes.
It's kind of fun little thing. So, obviously not household names yet, but I think maybe that's a good thing. I don't like it when they stunt cast. So,
and Rachel Brosnahan, famous for The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel on Amazon Prime.
Yeah. So yeah, if you look at Corenswet side by side with Cavill, they're pretty close. I don't know why we didn't just stick with Henry Cavill, but
that's an unfortunate name, I have to say.
Corenswet?
Yeah.
Corenswet.
Couldn't have been easy for him as a kid.
No, I'm sure. So, but anyways, so congrats to them, and let's see what happens. And finally, I just want to bring up Alan Arkin has passed away, 89. So,
do you know he gave the commencement speech at my college graduation?
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that was last week?
No, it's not last week. So many years ago.
So many years ago. Stop yourself.
Yes.
Oh, very cool. Yeah. 89. He didn't win an Oscar until 2006.
Yeah, for Little Miss Sunshine.
Little Miss Sunshine.
Although he'll always be Schmendrick the Magician to me.
Schmendrick.
Mm-hmm.
What movie is that from?
From Last Unicorn.
I didn't even pull. I pulled out Edward Scissorhands and The Rocketeer. I knew he was in Glengarry Glen Ross, and I don't think I even became aware of him until The In-Laws in college with Peter Falk.
Yeah, that was was an HBO staple. The In-Laws
ad nauseum in college.
You had never, when I was young, I remember watching Wait Until Dark with my mom.
With Audrey.
I would not watch
Audrey Hepburn. Yeah.
So that's my news. If anybody has anything else to bring to the table.
Mm-mm.
If not, then let's jump on the train and head to Asteroid City.
And I saw this movie last week before we even recorded last week's show. I
Right.
had already seen this. And I've been thinking about this movie all week.
Yeah, I will say 24 hours later, I still haven't decided if I just watched the greatest movie ever made or the worst movie ever made.
So, we talked a little bit about this last week. You kind of either like Wes Anderson's style or you don't,
Correct.
and it's not like a moral failing if you don't, it's just his style is not for everybody.
Yeah.
In this movie in particular, I really started thinking about the way he uses artifice, because artifice is such a huge part of all of his movies, but this movie in particular, because you're watching layers of a story, right? You're watching this performance that is being put on by actors, and then you're also experiencing that performance as a movie. And all the people in the film play two different characters. They play an actor, and then they play the character they're playing in that show. I really am starting to think about his films as, a lot of his films use like a narrative device. Royal Tenenbaums does this, Grand Budapest Hotel does this. And you have these framing devices around the story. And I think that it ends up making them feel a lot almost like fairy tales. If you kind of accept that artifice and you accept that framing, the amazing thing about his films is that they seem sort of surface level, right? Because they're very staged and there's like a very specific style, but all of his films are grappling with this incredibly deep emotional core. In this film, the character played by Jason Schwartzman, who is a war photographer whose wife has died. And he's not dealing with it so much that he hasn't even told his children that their mother has died. I think Jason Schwartzman in particular really embodies the Wes Anderson spirit in some way. He has a lot of actors that he works with over and over, and we can get into Wes Anderson's inspirations for this film, one of which was the Actors Studio in New York. And you definitely see that in kind of the offstage scenes. But he himself has assembled a kind of actor studio, right? He, like the Wes Anderson Players, like a theater troupe of people that he keep coming back and working with him over and over again. And when I first saw Jason Schwartzman, as we all did, first saw him in Rushmore, it was his first movie. It's a comedic part, but I remember thinking at the time, like this thing he did that was amazing. It was like watching somebody who had an open wound, who was like not acknowledging that he had an open wound. And that is 100% what his character is in this film, right? This guy is bleeding, but he's just pretending that he is not bleeding. He's trying to function in some way without acknowledging his grief. I think the great thing about him as a performer is like, whatever his mouth is saying, whatever his body is doing, like there's this pain that's deep in his eyes. And the way Wes Anderson puts the camera on him, like you see that inside of him. At the same time, it's like, yes, it's comedic and there's all these other stories, right? It's an ensemble story.
Ooh, is that an ensemble? It is a cast of who is who here. It's ridiculous. Yeah. Sometimes some of them are blinking, you'll miss them. You know? I mean, if you didn't know that Jeff Goldblum was going to show up as the alien, and you see it in the opening credits because you get all the credits up front.
Right.
But again, it literally is a blink and you'll miss it.
Yeah. And Jarvis Cocker, who is in the band Pulp, and I don't have great eyesight, so the credits were unreadable by me.
Yeah, they kind of went by really quick. Well,
as we were walking out, my wife says, "Oh, I bet you Jarvis Cocker was one of those cowhands." I'm like, Jarvis Cocker.
You didn't stay till the end because he plays a song over the end credits.
No, it was I had enough. But
Jim was like, I got to get out of here. Did you at least look to see if there was an end credit? And you're like, you know
No,
what?
I
Else will
didn't.
tell me.
Somebody else will tell me. Yeah.
He played a song over the end credits called,
Okay.
you know,
Oh, that's unfortunate now that
Yeah.
I know that, but
he's also in Fantastic Mr. Fox.
Okay. You know, Wes Anderson tends to reuse his cavalcade of stars.
Well, that's the whole thing. It's like once he works with somebody, it's like
Yeah,
he
listen.
can't let them go.
I mean, I will tell you, this kid Jake Ryan, who played Woodrow, who is Jason Schwartzman's son,
Yes.
is Jason Schwartzman at that age. He's fantastic. And I'm like, this is perfect casting.
yeah, I think Wes Anderson was courting his next Jason Schwartzman.
Well,
he's
he
like,
found
okay,
him.
I'm going to use you now for every single one of my leads.
Yeah, and I think he found him. Obviously, this kid was in Moonrise Kingdom. I have not seen that, but yeah, I mean, listen, this visually is a feast for the eyes.
Yeah, I will agree. This is a thing of beauty to behold. It's like looking at a live action Radiator Springs. It's like being in Disney California Adventure in Cars Land.
Yeah. And if you actually go and you do sit through the credits, you will see that there's a lot of production work, physical production work. People were building those buttes out in the desert, you know. Obviously, it's all foreshortened. But it's not done in, you know, it's not some special effect or some CG. These are all physical props.
And the colors are so vivid and beautiful. It's like looking at a color magazine from 1955.
Yeah,
it's got like that washed out
postcard. Yeah,
beautiful.
It really is mesmerizing to just kind of take. We can get lost in the cinematography and some of the other stuff. And you talk about Christina. You talk about, you know, the way sometimes he frames Jason Schwartzman's character, and especially those scenes with him and Scarlett Johansson when they're literally just in the windows. They're just
they're in a frame,
and they're in a frame. They're talking to each other. It's a back and forth. But like, there's a scene later in the movie where they're all outside eating, and there's lattice work up above them, so everyone is covered in this this checkered light that is now absolutely gorgeous. The level of detail and depth that some of this stuff goes to, a treat to behold visually.
So one of the things that's interesting about Wes Anderson is he always seems a little reluctant to tell you what the story is about, because he wants you.
I'm still waiting to find out what the story is about.
No, I mean, like in the film, like he wants you to interpret it, and you know that I like that.
Oh yeah, you love that vague.
Well, I think that was the point. The word vague, you know, because I think it's just trying to grapple with an impossible question, like what does it all mean? I think that's what he's getting at.
Yes, correct.
Right.
Yeah.
What does it all mean?
What does it all mean?
Yeah.
Right. And then you kind of see the layers of, again, you sort of see the layers of that cascade through the film. So you see Jason Schwartzman as the actor. I think his name is Jones when he's the actor. Jones Hall. And then when he's in the play, he's Augie Steenbeck, the war photographer. And you see him approach the playwright and say, like, why does this happen? Why does this thing happen? Right. And the playwright's like, I don't know. And he's like, well, I think it's because he's trying to feel something. And he's like, yeah, that's a good interpretation.
That sounds just as good as anything. You know, it's like, don't think about it too hard.
Right.
Yeah, just do it.
And then you see him in the play, in the film, talking to Scarlett Johansson's character, Midge Campbell, and they're rehearsing a scene through the window. And she's like, no, don't just read the lines, like feel it. And then you see him start to express some of his anger over his wife's death in this moment. But again, like with that filter of he can't come out and say he's mad that she's died, you know, so he's filtering it through this performance that he's practicing with Midge Campbell. And then finally you see his everything come to fruition at the end of the film when he's standing on the balcony across from Margot Robbie, who was supposed to be in the play as his wife, but her heart was cut out, and they do the scene that they were supposed to do, which is functionally her telling him, you have to move on. Yeah.
But it was cut from the play, so he never got that speech.
But you get it.
It is a very, very interesting, you know, you bring this idea of his other movies, that the framework of the black and white with Bryan Cranston as the narrator, kind of spoon feeding you what you're about to see or what you should, your expectations, I guess, or lack of expectations. And Ed Norton is the screenwriter.
Well, here's the thing is that this thing with Bryan Cranston in the beginning, the black and white,
Right.
it's a televised, almost docudrama of how they made this play. So you're not even sure if this is the screenwriter or this is the actor or what have you, because it's not like you're behind the scenes in some other movies where you're seeing a movie being made. Yeah. Right. This is like, it introduces you to a docudrama of how they made this play.
Yeah, it's like a play in a play. This is Inception level stuff where it's
with the actual play that they're talking about in the docudrama.
And like you said, at one point Jason Schwartzman comes out and he addresses with the screenwriter Ed Norton, how do I play this or how do I do this? He walks off stage, comes back, and then he leaves, and then it returns to the movie quote play. And then you see him kind of work that. Yeah.
As a matter of fact, it's Edward Norton is not the guy because they say that he dies before the end of the. So these are actors playing the parts of the actors.
Very heady. I don't think we're doing it justice by kind of explaining it because there's so much more going on.
Oh, yeah.
And it's Schwartzman trying to come to terms. He's got these 3 little daughters who absolutely steal this movie.
Yes.
Yeah. I was very sad that they weren't in it more, actually, because that's what I was missing. Like, I love Bottle Rocket. I love Rushmore, obviously, love Royal Tenenbaums. But I think that Wes Anderson, since then, has been slowly going up his own posterior. And I think he's almost all the way up there.
See,
because I didn't connect with any of this except those 3 little girls. So
I think the opposite, because I think Moonrise Kingdom and Grand Budapest Hotel are so emotionally honest, like in the spirit of a Rushmore.
But you see, I was thinking that the reason I dislike this is the same reason that I dislike a lot of Tarantino movies, because all the characters talk in the same monotone. Schwartzman is not really emoting. He's only going through his feelings with the lines of dialogue. He's robotically, it says to knock off things from my shelf. I'll knock them off. It feels like you're listening to Wes Anderson throughout this whole thing and not the characters. And
isn't that part of the conceit that it is a play and maybe it's not the final play?
But even a playwright can write for characters rather than themselves.
Maybe they're all bad actors who just don't know enough how to connect with their character.
And I don't feel that way because I feel like the sort of tweeness that people don't like, I feel like I hate Royal Tenenbaums. That's my least favorite Wes Anderson movie. And that sort of tweeness, I feel like, is really, really present in things like Royal Tenenbaums and Life Aquatic, which I like. I like Life Aquatic. But then I feel like Moonrise Kingdom and Grand Budapest Hotel start to get at this core of honesty. And I think that that's present here. And I also think that one of the interesting things about Wes Anderson is he said that sometimes he starts to write a script without a sense of where it's going, and he discovers it as he goes along.
I don't think he ever discovered this one.
No,
I think he's still looking.
I think he did. But
okay, all right.
I think it's open to interpretation, which I like.
But again, right, you're making the audience work for this.
I like working.
Okay, fair enough.
And,
I think it was pretty straightforward. I didn't have an issue with that. I got what was trying to be expressed here. It was just the means that I didn't like so much.
But also, I really feel the not sure where you're going and feeling your way into the film. That's how I write every single book.
You're coming at it from a very creative point of view, that you are creating a world that obviously Jim and I don't share, where you can look at the creative process and be like, all right, this guy's literally just kind of putting words on a page and he's feeling out these characters.
I think what's interesting too is, so I have this book, it's called Do Not Detonate Without Presidential Approval. And it's basically his inspirations for Asteroid City. It's just a collection of essays from different things, an excerpt from Elia Kazan's biography. There's a Time article, Backstage at Playhouse 90, which was a show that was done live, where like a play was put on live on TV. So reviews of different films that sort of came out around this era. He's got a bunch of things from Close Encounters of the Third Kind. And he talks about, there's an interview at the beginning of the film where he talks about like all of these influences that sort of came in on him that he kind of wanted to put into this film, but primarily this idea where he was really enamored of the Actors Studio in New York, which was, famously like where a lot of method actors came out of this system, including Paul Newman, including Marlon Brando, Marilyn Monroe, actors who kind of learned how to be actors in this very specific place at this very specific time. And you see a little bit of this when they do the acting exercise where they all pretend to be asleep. Yeah.
You can't wake up if you don't fall asleep.
That's right.
That's the one thing I learned from this movie.
He was really enamored of this idea of like making a movie about actors, and then sort of using that as a framing device for going into another story. Again, to me, it's sort of a really interesting way of thinking about film. Instead of being like, this needs to be hyper realistic, saying this isn't real. We know that it's not real. You know that it's not real, but like, I think you can still get at real emotion kind of through that method.
Well, you'll be shocked to learn that I wanted more Alien.
It's so interesting because and it came from outer space, and here like something happens, right? The alien comes down, like the military completely overreacts. The area is quarantined, they can't go anywhere, and that's interesting too because it sort of puts all the characters in a position like where they can't leave, right? They would normally
that's genius for a play, so you don't have to change scenery.
Yeah.
Again, you take it to its core. If you want to believe that this is a stage play,
right?
You want to keep your characters in one location,
right?
And being isolated. There's a lot to like about this. The dialogue is incredibly quirky. The characters are quirky. Matt Dillon, who really doesn't have a lot to do, but the handful of scenes that he's in, I enjoyed. Again, we bring up the three sisters or witches, whatever you want to call them.
I'm a vampire.
I'm a vampire. I'm a
mummy.
Yeah. Cassiopeia, Andromeda, and Pandora are their names. Tom Hanks, we didn't even mention Tom Hanks. Jeffrey Wright, who shows up as the general. Tilda Swinton, Hickenlooper.
You can go through the whole cast. We'd be here for an hour. Each name gets more famous than the last.
Yeah, and like I said, there are, Adrian Brody, who, there's so many of these guys that kind of come and go. Steve Carell, who, I guess does the best he can with his character. There's a lot going on, but yeah, to me, I enjoyed the journey. I was completely invested. When the teacher, everyone's under quarantine now. They're not allowed to leave the town. Military's got everything closed off. And this poor teacher, all she's trying to do is give these kids a lesson and to keep them on track. All they want to talk about is the alien. And then the one kid's like, I wrote a song. And then they just break out into song, and the little Montana and his band come over and they're like, oh, we heard Johnny wrote a song, so we wrote some music. And then I'm just like, this is the dumbest effing thing I've ever seen. And yet I'm kind of enjoying it.
Those scenes with the kids were the only times for me that this really came alive, and the alien, obviously, because that was very well acted by that
alien?
by that stop motion alien. When I looked at the plot to this and saw it was about junior stargazers, because that was like the basic synopsis, right? So I'm like, oh, this is going to be like a Return to Rushmore or Moonrise Kingdom or something. It's going to focus on these quirky kids that have their inventions and everything from what you see on the poster and what have you. I so wanted more of that. That wasn't to be.
No, it was not this movie. I will tell you right now, the Dancing Roadrunner stole the movie for me, though.
At the end.
Well, he shows up throughout. He's in there a couple times. And, you mentioned Life Aquatic. Bill Murray was set to play the hotel manager. And he came down with COVID, and Steve Carell stepped in, which was actually exactly what happened on Little Miss Sunshine, which we just mentioned at the top of the show. Like I said, I'm still kind of thinking about it, processing it. To me, it's no deeper than cotton candy. I enjoyed it. Empty calories. A day from now, I probably will stop thinking about it.
Whereas I've been thinking about it for a week, and I'm probably going to see it again.
Fair enough.
because
In a week and a half, it'll be on streaming.
it won't
Really?
be though. Really?
Oh, are you telling
Yeah.
me that's true?
Last night, I said they've already have a date for mid-July for when it hits streaming available for view on demand. Obviously, you're gonna have to pay for
And
it.
it's also, I think, based on last week's box office, it was doing pretty good.
This, from what I understood, it's not like a last second decision. I think that was the plan
This was just
always, to
something, yeah.
release it for a couple of weeks and then put it on VOD.
I enjoyed it in the theater. I was happy to see this.
Oh, I totally agree. I think the cinematography, the colors can only be truly appreciated on a big screen. I really appreciated what was presented to me in terms of the visuals. That really went a long way. If I didn't have that, then I would be completely adrift, but I
Did you
loved
catch-
the visuals.
At one point, they actually in the background were playing the Slim Whitman song that kills all the aliens in Mars Attacks.
I didn't realize that during the viewing, but I read it afterwards. That is pretty funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, I remember reading a review of this sometime last week that basically said, like, this is not going to make Wes Anderson any new converts. And like I said, that's fine.
I don't necessarily, I don't
You know?
believe that though, because I've never been a big, huge fan and I haven't watched a lot of his stuff.
Mhm.
But there's enough style and substance here. I probably would watch this again now, knowing the beats, and because there's a couple scenes where, again, back to Schwartzman and Scarlett Johansson's characters, and they're inside these windows. They're two little bungalows side by side, and he's clearly using multiple cuts because Johansson's hands up on her chin at one and then disappears. At one point, Jason Schwartzman's got grilled cheese in his hands,
Yeah.
and the bite mark flips from side to side. And I'm like, for somebody who's that controlling over his visuals, I can't imagine that he would have let that slide. So I think it's intentional
Mhm.
that, you know, if you watch his play every night for a week, you're going to get variations on it. You're going to get different takes. And so in that regard, if I go back and rewatch this with that kind of cinematic eye, that what I am watching is nothing more than a play, and these all are actors, I may appreciate it on a different level.
I think what's interesting too is you have all these little mini worlds inside this space. So you have like all the smart kids, the junior stargazers who've won awards, and they're like a little band unto themselves who are kind of doing their own thing. And then you have their parents who are kind of all interacting in one way. And then you have the military, obviously, that is doing one thing and having their own meetings about the alien and other stuff that's happened. And then you have Augie and Midge who have created their own little world between their windows. And you have the three sisters who are having their own little mission to like bury their mom's ashes in a specific
Tupperware, yeah.
way in the Tupperware. So there's all these like little micro universes kind of happening inside the film. And then there's just a few scenes where everybody comes together, and significantly, two of those scenes are when the alien appears.
And as Jim mentioned, he's very obviously a stop motion little
Mhm.
creature, but that doesn't,
Which is wonderful.
I think it kind of
That's wonderful.
charm. Yeah, that it does lead into, like, if
Yeah.
you watch Mr.
I know
Freeze,
Jeff
Fox,
Goldblum is thin, but he's not that thin.
Mhm.
No, but I think he kind of acted like him. Yeah.
So I don't think it's necessarily an issue of you can take Wes Anderson or leave him. You know, it's all up to the movie for me. I like certain Wes Anderson movies, and there's others that I don't. And it just happens to be the more recent ones that I don't. And I'm not saying that I disliked this. I just wasn't completely on board with it.
Invested, yeah.
Yeah.
I think I dislike Royal Tenenbaums because I'm so classist. I just hate rich people. And
Oh, so do I. That's why I can't watch a Noel Baumbach movie or whatever, because
Noah
it's-
Baumbach.
No, yeah. The thing that really struck me about Royal Tenenbaums is I can watch that just for the soundtrack alone.
Mm.
I love that soundtrack.
Like Royal Tenenbaums really sort of stands out for me, the fact that I don't like it that much, because I do like all of his other films so much. We actually just rewatched Grand Budapest Hotel last week, and that sort of uses a similar framing device as this, because in that film, you have Tom Wilkinson as this author who is telling the story of when he was a young man who goes to this hotel where he meets the owner, who then tells him the story of his youth and how he acquired the hotel. And all of this is in a book that a character is reading at the beginning and the end of the story. So you have the same kind of layers
You've already lost me on that.
in Grand Budapest Hotel as you have here. And like I said, there's something that Wes Anderson likes to do, I think, with the artifice of saying, like, this is a story. You are watching a story, and I'm going to show you kind of like behind the scenes of how the story gets made. In Grand Budapest Hotel, it sort of flips out again. It flips out from, like, it goes into the story of the past, and then it flips out from the story of the past to the writer as the young man, to the writer as the old man, to the girl reading the book. Here, this doesn't do this because it actually ends with Augie and his family driving away from the town, right? So that instead of going all the way out back to the actors, it stays in the world of the play. And then that's how it leaves you.
This is where I just say, I like turtles. The dancing roadrunner. Yeah, I can't just tell you a story without showing it. It's a story inside a story that someone is reading through a lens.
So the way Jason Schwartzman talks in this film is very specific. I don't know if you noticed. It's almost like he doesn't open
his jaw.
He's all the way. So he was talking to Wes and to Roman Coppola, his cousin, who worked on the story with Wes Anderson. And they came up with this idea that he was going to speak like Stanley Kubrick. So if you've ever heard Kubrick speak, this is pretty much what he does. Part of the look, the beard and the pipe is all based on Kubrick. Schwartzman, he couldn't get it for a long time. He could not achieve the thing he was trying to achieve. And they ultimately ended up putting a little piece inside his mouth that kept his jaw fixed.
That's method.
So that, and that goes back to the troupe of actors and, the actor studio in real life. And
now,
all this stuff.
Now, that would have been interesting if in the black and white scenes when it's outside, he actually took those out.
You see him do that.
Then it would have really brought.
You see, I'm just thinking he's speaking in the same monotone as everybody else. So it's all his work is just lost on me. Interesting that they had to fight to give this a PG-13 rating because of that little 2-second scene that's in there.
And that is Scarlett Johansson, full frontal.
Which I was convinced that they went out of their way to make you think that it was a double because
right, correct. They crop off her head.
But also it's mostly in the mirror, it's sort of blurred. It's not. I don't think it's really explicit.
It's not salacious.
No, but definitely not an R-rated scene whatsoever. No, and I don't think they cut anything. That was the same as it was.
You get one full frontal.
I guess so.
I don't think there was any swearing, no cursing that I remember. I could be wrong.
There might have been, but
I don't remember.
I don't know that it stood out to me. Yeah. One thing that was funny though is, there was a couple sitting next to us, and I think they might have been high, or they were.
That might have enhanced your experience on this.
Or they were Wes Anderson's biggest fans because they were laughing at every joke so loud, the guy who was at Color Out of Space, who was sitting behind us, who was just guffawing at everything Nick Cage said. These people were ha, ha, ha. I mean, really audible laughter. I'm it's a funny movie, but it's not that funny.
You're probably sitting next to Robert De Niro from Cape Fear.
I will say my theater was very quiet. I probably chuckled more.
Oh, my theater, everybody else was in Indiana Jones. I think we're
We'll get
no, I mean, my theater was full. It was completely full.
Well, speaking of audiences, this is apparently Wes Anderson's biggest opening weekend ever with this movie.
Listen, this is what happens when you bring in aliens.
Although it's still, from what I'm seeing as of this weekend, it still hasn't made back its budget. It cost $25 million to make, and so far it's made 22.
Which is insane. We talk about these movies that are $200-300 million. He made this entire movie with that cast, $25 million.
Well, I'm sure they sign on for peanuts.
No, I know, but
think
about, yeah, I mean, that's impressive. That's insane.
What I
Some
think
of these guys alone make
you got to have the clout of a Wes Anderson to pull that
well,
off.
I'm sure that. Well, yeah, I think he's got the street creds at this point, and I'm sure that people
want to work with him. You know, it's not like he has to chase these people to.
Yeah, because again, that Margot Robbie is such a throwaway character, and you're like, you don't even realize it's her at first.
And I mean, I wouldn't say it's throwaway because she's kind of the most important scene of the movie.
Okay, but in the sense that I'm saying, when you're watching the screen time.
Yeah,
that some of these characters have, it's the clout of I need to work with Wes Anderson and I'll do it for free.
You know, like I said, he has sort of assembled something like an actor studio for himself, where he has all these people who worked with him before, and I think that what comes through, no matter what the film, is like how much he cares about the movie, and I think actors appreciate that. You know, can you imagine, like, you spend all your time, you know, because you've got to work, right? So like a lot of times actors end up taking parts where you're like, why is this actor in this? Because they need a paycheck, you know, and they're in something where like the special effects are more important than the performance, and then you can go and work with somebody like Wes Anderson, who's like really thinking about every scene and saying, okay, like, let's do this, let's do that, and everybody's on the same page. I mean, it's got to feel really like nourishing in a way. I think that honestly, like working on a Marvel film or whatever just doesn't.
You made the point that Anderson has like this kind of stable of James Gunn has the same thing. He's got his go-to guys. Tarantino, definitely. So there are certain directors out there who command a respect that people want to work with. Whether you respect their work or not, they do have a name. I enjoyed this for what it was.
It might also say something about the director. And I think in this case, especially with Wes Anderson, you know, he seems, I don't know the guy, you know, and I don't pretend to, but just to look at him, he looks like, you know, kind of a nerd at heart, right? So maybe he's insular. Maybe he wants to have familiar faces around him that he knows.
Are not going to question him. Here's what I want you to do. I'm not doing
that. You know,
get off my set.
But it's interesting because I don't think of him as like in that sort of like a dictatorial sense, because if you ever hear an interview with him, he always says our movie. He never says my movie in the way that a lot of directors do. He's always like, well, when we were doing our movie, we did this and this, right? He just has, I think, a collaborative sense. And I think he likes to work with people who are on the same wavelength, you know? And like, obviously he's co-written now a lot of films with Roman Coppola, at least on the conception together. And then Wes is like, you know, actually written the script. You know, he worked with Bill Murray 9 times, you know, he's worked with Jason Schwartzman multiple times, you know, and every film he brings in somebody new, and it seems like those people would come back for the next film.
Sure,
so,
they must be having a great experience, because otherwise, why would they return?
Right. You know, Tony Revolori, who's in this, you know, his first film is a Wes Anderson film. It was Grand Budapest Hotel.
You could walk into a movie like this, not know anything about Wes Anderson, and be like, this movie is so pretentious, it's ridiculous, and not get it, just grade it on a superficial level. And that's fine, because you can dig deeper, and that's any creative.
And I love movies that let me dig around. You guys know that. I love that. I love a movie that like gives me a lot of space, like to get in and think about all the different layers of what's going on. And I love the artifice of his films. I actually I am drawn to that, and I love the way he creates little worlds, you know, little snow globes.
That is one thing he does very well, is this world building. Whether you want to visit it or not, it's there. Yeah.
If we're ready for buckets, Christina, do you want to go first?
Why? Because mine's going to be the highest.
Yours going to be the highest.
You should go last. I get a feeling I may be right in the middle, so maybe Jim should go
I sense
first.
I sense this too.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to go long on mine. It's just
okay.
I'm going to go 3 buckets. I didn't like it as much as I did some of his other movies, but loved bits and pieces of it. Loved the cinematography. Loved the kids aspect of it as well. But yeah, for me, it was more of the same that I've been getting from him in the past few movies. So yeah, 3 buckets for me.
That's still fair. I'm not a huge Anderson fan. I can't tell you probably the animated Fox movie in Isle of the Dogs might have been the last thing I've seen from him. So I don't have malaise over his work and be like, oh, it's the same old, but I'm going to give it 3.25. But 1/4 is for the Dancing Roadrunner.
It's interesting, Jim, that you bring that up. He does direct kids really well, and I think
he does.
I think he directs teenagers in particular really well.
Yeah, no, the scene with the little brainiac kids all sitting around. I couldn't even keep up with what that little game they were playing, by the way.
Oh, the memory game?
It's Simon. That's basically Simon.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Simon, I just press a yellow, green, red button.
Except that you see, I don't want to get off too much of a tangent here, but you see all of them moving their eyes because what they're doing is as each person is saying the thing, they're matching what the person has said to the face.
Yes, visual.
Right. And that's like basically, something that they're using to remember what they're supposed to remember.
Or they're just one-upping each other. Like, I know what it is that I need to say, and I know who said it, and I'm going to look at you.
So, I mean, for me, like, I have to put this in the context of his whole work because I'm a fan of almost all of his movies. I'm gonna give this 4.25, but because Rushmore is my favorite, Rushmore is a 5. Yeah, and then some of his other movies I would say I would rank above this. I think the only one that I would rank below it is For Hail Tenenbaums. I'm really not a fan of For Hail Tenenbaums. I don't like rich people, and like I just have trouble getting behind a movie that has Gwyneth Paltrow in it.
I have a different opinion of her these days than I used to.
You don't own stocking.
But yeah, I mean, I'm gonna try to go see this again this week. I was trying to go this week to see it again once more before we talked about it, but I didn't have a chance.
Interesting. Okay, so let's get on that train that brings us out of Asteroid City, which is, I guess, as we said, all these actors are now jumping on it. You could call it the Wes Anderson Express, the Snowpiercer Wes Anderson Express, that'll just keep going. And then these actors will jump back on it off at will next time he does a movie.
Well, he did a train movie, the Darjeeling Limited. So. He
likes trains.
Yeah.
He does like that train motif.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. So let's go to the snack car before we get off at the next stop. And what's the fictional town in It Came from Outer Space?
That would be
Sandrock, Arizona.
Sandrock, yeah.
Sandrock, Arizona. Next stop. So my concession this week, I think this is going to be short and sweet, or tart and tiny, should I say?
Sweet tarts?
No.
Oh.
Now, the reason I say it's going to be short and sweet, I may be the only one out of the three of us that even knows what this is. This is called, and I think it was only out for a year, but it made a huge mark in my memory. And when I was just looking for ideas of what to do that would tie in with these two movies this week, this just came out like a clarion blast from eBay. I'm like, oh, I remember this. And suddenly the taste, the feel of this package in my hand was palpable. This was called the U.F.O. candy. Now, I don't mean flying saucers that are wafers that, are round, flat, and have a ridge around them, because these are readily available to this day. This is something different. U.F.O. candy came in a little plastic UFO. And this was available starting in 1978. And I can't say that it was available for a very long time. It was put out by Sunmark through Breaker Confections. Now, Sunmark, we've already talked about as being the manufacturers of Pixie Sticks, which we've discussed. Fun Dip or Lick-O-Maid, whatever you want to call it.
Oh, number one ingredient, sugar.
Number one ingredient, sugar, yes. And so these UFO candies, and I'll put a picture up on our Twitter, just so anybody that's listening to this that's curious as to what this thing looked like, you can see it. It had a very late 70s futuristic font, and it just said UFO on the top of it. And it was probably about 3-4 inches in diameter. So on the bottom of it, was the hatch where you would pop it open right in the middle of it, and the little pellets would come out. And these were basically tart and tiny candies. And after you were done with the candy and you had an empty package, you could use it as a little Frisbee. And it also had, and I don't remember this, but according to the ad that I pulled up from eBay, You could use it as a whistle as well.
Wow.
An alien whistle.
So it looked about the same size as an old-fashioned guitar tuner that you would whistle or around the diameter, and it was about that size. So because of your silence, I assume that neither of you know what I'm talking about.
I have no clue. I would have been all over this.
Yes.
I don't remember this at all.
No, in 1978. Yeah, I'm a little disappointed that you didn't choose moon pies.
No, never a Moon Pies fan, actually. So I would have been talking about it just in the same distanced way as I was about Asteroid City. But yeah, UFO candy.
And you're saying that it kind of came and went, and
it kind of came and went. Yeah, after about a year, it was gone. But again, seeing this thing, and there's some on eBay, empty. Packages are going for about $30, just that little plastic UFO. It came in about 4 different colors. I think it was red, yellow, blue, green. So you could see, and it was translucent. You could see the candy through the plastic cover.
Interesting. The candies weren't shaped like aliens, right?
No, they were just little pellets.
That's a missed opportunity right there.
But there's one I see that's on not on eBay, but on another website that actually still has the candy in it. They're asking $100 for that.
Woo!
So it's like
that is out of this world.
Like a 40-year-old candy.
Yeah, and of course it says "Don't eat the candy" at the very end of the ad.
For somebody that probably was spending all my money at that time on Topps trading cards, I still have sealed packs of Star Wars that have the gum in them.
So
but
again,
you're not going to chew it.
I recommended you don't chew it. Yes.
Yeah, and also on the bottom, like right before you broke the seal into the bottom of the UFO to get the candy, there was like a yin and yang kind of an animation with blue, yellow, and red in drops going around in a circle. And as a bonus, when you open this thing up, because you could also open it up almost like a compact without the mirror, on the inside cover, there was a little UFO fact as well.
What were the facts?
Well, I'm sure stuff like your government is lying to you, kids,
right.
And stuff like
well,
that.
We all know that.
Yeah.
Roswell.
Breaker Sunmark was later taken over by Nestle, and they renamed it the Willy Wonka family. So Nestle, Willy Wonka, whatever you want to call yourselves, please, if you're listening to this, put back out UFO candy. Do yourself a favor.
Is it AEPs, AIPs now?
I don't know.
UAP.
UAP. There it is. They do not refer to them as UFOs anymore.
But as I said before, when I was trying to look up more information about this, precious little was to be had. Just lots of photos, though, from eBay and secondhand selling places. So, again, I'll post something up there so you could take a look at just what the heck it is I'm talking about.
Interesting. All right.
So let me pass this out. Do not eat it. Just admire it. And let's go. Let's move on. Let's get out of this concession car because our stop is coming up.
There you go. I'm not the only one that thinks we missed calling this segment concessionals.
That deserves the canned laughter, Jeff.
All righty then. No crickets today. Well,
no.
Wait, we're not done yet.
Stop all your head. Stop all your head.
Yeah.
No.
Get too big for your britches here.
Yeah. I don't have a lot of jokes going in. Well, that's not entirely true. But let's talk about this because I was thrilled to rewatch this.
I'd never seen this before.
What? Ever.
Well, here's the thing. As soon as the title was put out there for us to watch from Christina, right? Yes. It came from outer space.
Yes.
I immediately thought of that Clips movie from the early 80s. It came from Hollywood. And I got excited for a second. Oh, it's that Clips movie. No, it came from Hollywood, which was, do you guys know what I'm talking about? Hosted by the players of Saturday Night Live and Cheech and Chong and different comedians from the time playing clips from movies. So not only from that movie, but there's tons of clip reels that you've seen on TV shows that just put together different scenes from 50s black and white sci-fi movies. So I was very familiar with what the aliens look like in this movie because I've seen countless clips from this movie, but I've never seen the full movie itself. First time.
Yeah, which is weird because from what I understand, they never intended to actually show the aliens. And that was
bizarre.
a last minute ad Yeah, let's get into it because I will say I watched this. I rented the DVD from my library, and there's not only a audio commentary, but there's also a behind the scenes
With David Scull, right? Does the commentary?
Hold on one second. I'll tell you. I think you are correct. Yes.
He's a movie historian, and he's done a lot of interesting.
No, the audio commentary is Tom Weaver.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he was a film historian.
He's done. David Scull has done commentary for Dracula, the Universal Dracula Blu-ray, and some other stuff. But I think I read that he had done a commentary or behind the scenes thing for this, for It Came from Outer Space. I saw last year in Chicago, there was an It Came from Outer Space musical.
Oh.
And it was fantastic.
Okay, good. I don't want you to make fun of me because I'm going to see Back to the Future on Broadway next week. So,
speaking of musicals, just as an aside, I was going to bring this up in the news, but I completely forgot. In Disney's California Adventure, you can now actually see Rogers the musical in Marvel Land. They are staging Rogers the musical from Hawkeye, the
get out of here,
Disney Plus show. Yeah,
that is very meta.
All right, I'm sorry to derail things. Let's go.
All right, to a screechy. Usually it's me. So, 1953, directed by Jack Arnold, who's got this was kind of like one of his first, right? But he went on. He made some big name movies. Creature from the Black Lagoon, Incredible Shrinking Man.
Oh, it was starred Richard Carlson, by the way.
Yeah, this guy was all over. Richard Carlson was he typecast or did he purposely seek out these roles? I was like, all right, you're really good at this weird scientist guy, so let's just put a tweed jacket on you and a pipe.
We've talked about this for the few times we've covered some of these older movies that a lot of these guys were players because this is a Universal movie. Now, I watched this on Prime for $4 or whatever, so it was retrofit with the 100th anniversary Universal logo.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was actually the documentary that was attached to the DVD was The Universe According to Universal. So they go through the whole history of sci-fi movies from Universal. It was actually really kind of neat. But
and this was the first 3D movie from Universal.
And this is what I want to how does 3D in black and white work?
I thought that as well.
Because I will say, and I don't know if this was the DVD or if this is intentional, the contrasts are very extreme. The darks are incredibly dark. There's a lot of stuff that looks very muddy, but I'm wondering, there's the one scene in the cave where he is finally confronted and they show him his true appearance. In the 3D, apparently you can see the tentacles much better than you can in 2D. So I don't know if it's intentional that the contrast is that extreme, but it's wild because this was one of the very first 3D movies, and it was also released in what they considered a wide format.
When we're watching it, so I'm watching it with my son, and I said, this was meant to be a 3D movie, so I bet you'll see some things coming toward the camera. And sure enough, right at the beginning, the ship flies towards you, and my son's like, you can see the mirror.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And you can see the string. You can see the string.
No, that's not the string. There's a tail fin on it.
But they are so impressed with this shot. They use it more than once.
Times.
So if you think, okay, I thought I saw something on the side there, you get to see it again.
It is a blink and you miss it. You're right. Because what they did was they shot that thing down. They actually filmed in the mirror. The model that came down and crashed, they're filming the reflection in the mirror. So at the right at the last second,
you can see it on the left side of the screen.
Band. But I will tell you, the special effects are pretty impressive for a 1953.
Well,
outside of
they do things pretty minimally, right?
Yes, correct.
So
but it's well enough to establish the world that we're now occupying here.
They try to do some tricks, you don't really see the alien, you kind of see through its eye, right?
Which I almost want to wonder, is this the first point of view from a creature? Because we've seen it multiple times, from Jaws to Grizzly to any other monster movie that's Snow Beast.
Mm-hmm.
But 1953, really, this is kind of the dawn of those alien, because Roswell was 47. So Hollywood's picking up on this idea that there's UFO, this whole, maybe there's something else out there kind of a thing. And I think it's very effective.
It's wild to read that they got those point of view shots by actually encasing the lens in a bubble. So
yeah,
they had to film it quickly before the bubble burst, which is crazy. So, but yeah, for something that wants to show its monster sparingly, for audiences that weren't used to POV shots, that weren't necessarily thinking, well, I want to see more of the monster, it's still a good device to have the monster there without actually seeing it. Because some of these scenes, especially the scenes in the car where they see it, these are scary, relatively scary scenes, because you can put yourself in that kind of a position.
But like I meant, well, first of all, in the script, whenever that point of view shot is, it's referred to as globbing. They're being globbed. So I thought that was kind of a neat little industry in joke. But the idea that you go through this whole movie and he's like, you need to show me your true appearance. And then they show him is wasted because he's already seen them twice. Like him and Ellen both encountered this thing in the car, and yet they never talk about it again. It's like, dude, what was that thing in the road? I don't know. Let's just go on our day.
But the way that this is cleaned up is really impressive, Jeff, as you were saying that there's some real contrast going on in terms of brights and darks. And some of the location shooting is really impressive. That tracking shot at the beginning where it's the camera's coming up over this hill, this wasteland of rocks, and then suddenly the town is revealed and there's this very serious narration of the actor saying,
which is I was gonna say Richard Carlson,
right, talk about pretentious. It's a predictable morning coming up here,
I think a lot of these movies take themselves way too seriously,
but it's a really nice location setting, so I would have really liked it if some of these shots that were so obviously on set, like when they get out of the car, it's very much, it's easy for me to say because I know it's easier to control, all the elements when you're on a set, but it would have been nice if they were actually, on the side of the road in the desert somewhere to give that extra atmosphere.
But I think it's kind of flawless. I mean, you literally see the road go off in the distance and you see the little tiny car, which is just a model that they're pulling up over the hill. The road just kind of gets painted onto the back wall.
I think it's not just about control, though. The thing that you have to remember is that in 1953, cameras were enormous. It's not like, even by the 70s, like the size of the camera has shrunk enough that you can take them on location. The cameras were these huge, things, like nobody was putting the camera on their shoulder.
Well, and also you got to think
filming 3D.
Yeah, these are 3D cameras as well.
This is pretty much a new technology. So
but it's not like you couldn't do that. You couldn't take because they got that shot at the beginning, obviously in that quote unquote helicopter that they were flying in a little bit later.
Oh my gosh.
Which is basically, it's like a love seat with rotors. That's what that helicopter was.
So I was laughing at this because it says like crop dusting service, right? And like, why did they need a crop dusting service in the desert where there are no crops?
And there's not even a compartment. They're in the open air. So whoever's driving this thing is getting the lungful of crop dust.
If you fly fast enough, you can outrun it.
And bugs in his teeth, I'm sure.
There you go. I do want to mention that there was an accident on set. Check this out. So the assistant director, Carl Lawrence, he was filming those scenes of the helicopter coming down because, again, they're trying to employ the 3D effect. And at one point, so he's filming the second unit stuff. And he gets hit by one of the rotary blades. This guy was filming a helicopter, fractured his skull and his jaw, and he
like Dawn of the Dead,
and he lost his right eye. No, he didn't get his head lopped off, but he got the guy got seriously damaged, and I'm like, holy, crazy.
Wow.
You also mentioned the 3D effect or whatever during the premiere, during that opening earthquake. Audiences were actually pelted with styrofoam boulders.
So
you're kidding me.
No. So when I saw the musical version, they did the same thing. They told us.
Where did they come from? From behind or from the stage?
They came from the stage. So the actors came out and there was like a big sign that said, put on your 3D glasses, because we all had 3D glasses underneath
Okay,
our seats, and
right.
we put them on, and they would throw
Oh, that's
at the
fantastic.
audience.
Did they give you pith helmets too? Did you put
No,
on
it was
your helmets?
foam.
No, you get the
Yeah.
Space Cadet helmet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
But
great.
that
What a
was like-
precursor to Honey, I Shrunk the Audience.
That was really, really fun, actually.
Yeah, no, that's exactly. Yeah, I don't think they did it in subsequent screenings, but yeah, in the premiere they were pelted. So that's cool carryover.
You know what always makes me chuckle is when in one of these older movies a character blows out the candle and suddenly all the lights go out.
Yeah.
So you can tell somebody on set going, she's about to blow it out.
Yes,
Get
correct.
this right this time. Get this
Yeah.
right this time.
Just a second off. But
Yeah.
that's a nice big telescope he's got there, by the way.
Yeah. Talking about
He's just about ready to get down with her. And then
they're talking about their astrological signs, talking about he's just about ready to get down. Well, she is, not him.
Yeah, he's all business, man. Those
It's
aliens.
like, people will talk. And she's like, yeah, they're going to talk.
Yeah, she's not really. They were more concerned about the fact that she was a teacher that wasn't showing up to school.
They're
on
basically singing Baby It's Cold Outside, but they've
Right.
switched roles.
her. Yeah, he wanted nothing to do with it. His head was literally in the clouds. So how ironic that he's the one that sees the aliens and no one believes him.
So they go to investigate after this thing comes down, right? So this is the second time you see it crash, apart
Not
from
the last.
the opening titles.
Yeah, all right.
And that's an impressive shot when you see it streak before it's coming right at you, but when you see it streak
Yeah.
across the sky, I
Yeah.
think that was really well done. And so they go to investigate the crater, and he goes down by himself. This is Johnny, the astronomer. So this thing looks like a big circular honeycomb, right? So
Looks like an interstellar soccer ball.
So one of the panels slowly is grabbed by a stagehand behind it and pulled inwards and slowly moved off frame. And then you see the alien.
The alien opened it. Don't ruin the effect for me. How dare you? The alien with his big tentacles.
So you see them looking at Johnny from the inside, the globbing effect or whatever you called it. And so Johnny goes back up to report what he saw. Everybody thinks he's crazy.
Yeah, which is funny because in subsequent all these movies in the 50s, it's always the teenagers that the adults don't believe. But here's I guess he was a bit of a laughing stock to begin with.
Well, he's a Democrat, right? He's a Democrat.
Is that what it was? He's like, how dare you get out of town? So he's ruining.
He's from the city.
And he's corrupting
the city,
his poor,
like a vague
marm.
city with a capital C, right? They mentioned a couple of times.
And it was the Excelsior mine they crashed into. And that's all miniature. At one point you get that that far away shot and you see little Johnny, which is a doll. He's a little 6-7 inch tall doll. It brings the effect home,
And he sees like the glitter trail on the
these
on
things
the ground.
are like what, intergalactic unicorns? They're pooping.
Yeah,
glitter wherever
they're like My Little Pony with glitter.
Yeah, I don't want you in my house. At one point, they go to his house. Who's going to clean this up?
So it disappears, right? Like, because at the end, he kind of touches the floor and he's like, wait, the glitter's gone, right? So it's not clear what that is that they're trailing behind them.
Yeah.
But again, this is a great way to kind of show the effect of the alien without actually showing the alien.
Yeah.
It's like a really nice kind of low budget thing that you can do, like practically, like, oh, they were here, like here's the trail of glitter. My son was saying, are they teddy bears? Because when they would reach behind the person, it was almost like this big fluffy arm.
I know, it was like this huge wave of cloud that pulled them in.
Yeah.
And that awkward moment when Johnny is looking again into the honeycomb and the alien says, uh-oh, the human saw me. I'm just going to close the door like nothing happened.
Nothing to see here, sir.
Right.
But again, the idea that they could take on human forms is another way to have your creature directly in front of you without, so they just happen to take over a professor from the Gilligan's Island. Which would have been a great reveal on the TV show, by the way. If you found out in season 3 he was an alien all along.
Oh, that would have been fantastic.
He purposely sabotaged the.
Well, hey, this guy was way too smart for his own good on Gilligan's Island, so that would explain a lot of
He
things.
couldn't fix a boat. Not that smart.
And then Ellen, when he goes back up there, and Ellen and Petey, the helicopter pilot, don't believe him. And Ellen says to him, when the cops show up, don't tell them what you told us. Like, thanks for the vote of confidence, honey.
Well, even his professor friend that shows up doesn't believe me. He's like, well, there's nothing really to say here, Johnny. I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah. So yeah, this poor guy, I feel bad for him because he's like, I know what I saw. Yeah, no one's gonna believe you. You just happen to be looking for aliens and you saw one. So, but I still, again, they see this creature in the road and it's like, yeah, we're not. I saw it. No, he's trying to prove that this thing's still out there. Although that Joshua tree really scared her.
Oh, it did. It just snuck up out of nowhere, that Joshua tree.
Yeah, I don't know. And then, so the next day, the whole, the newspapers got a hold of it and everyone's there. And his professor says something to the extent like, oh, no, maybe it was the military. They're like, no radioactivity proves no spaceship. I was like, wouldn't that also prove no meteorite? Like, there's no radioactivity whatsoever. I don't know. Yeah, this poor guy.
There's a very strange relationship between the hometown sheriff, Matt, and Ellen, who I guess it's his duty to look after this girl.
He was very concerned with her well-being. Was it just me, or was that sheriff remind you a lot of Will Patton?
He was
young Will Patton.
He was in Harvey, the Jimmy Stewart.
Oh yeah, with
Harvey.
the rabbit, with the giant rabbit.
Yeah. He played the doctor at the asylum. And the whole time watching it, I'm like, I have seen this man's face before. Yeah,
no, like I said, I thought he looked like a young Will Patton. And I'm like,
and I had to look him up and I was like, oh yeah, he was in Harvey.
But the aliens, turns out that they're not so bad guys. You do get foreshadowing. So whenever you hear that theremin, you know that the aliens are coming.
This was like one of the first uses of that as well. I want one of these so bad.
And it's really like what you think of now, not then.
Oh, no, synonymous with.
But what you think of as like the stereotypical alien noise, right?
Oh, sure.
Like,
yeah.
Like this
anytime you say a UFO, you got to make that noise.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just this little metal. It's a computer box with two bars, and you just kind of put your hand in it like interference, and you move your hands, and you can create different sounds. And I'm like, I want one of these so bad. They're a couple $100 on eBay. Cut a couple albums. Maybe I got
you have like a whole second career.
I would so play with this thing. So does anyone else find it incredibly ironic that a one-eyed monster is starring in a 3D movie? Never see it. Yeah, we mentioned the tweed jacket before. This guy's running around the Arizona desert in a tweed jacket, and I'm like, dude, I'm dying just looking at you.
As we mentioned, as another excuse not to show the alien, very conveniently they can shapeshift, so you can watch your actors and look at the alien without actually having to look at
and I thought alien. They did a pretty good job of pretending that they weren't human.
Yeah, they were talking like they were in a Wes Anderson movie, actually.
Although I do have a question, because it becomes apparent that they just crashed. Their ship, something happened to it, and they need to repair it, and they need to get off. Are they paying cash, or are they using Frank and George's credit line to buy this stuff? Or are they just stealing it?
Well, there's line of dialogue that there was a break-in at the hardware store.
Yeah, they were stealing stuff.
But because they're walking around like they didn't care. They were just walking around.
Because Frank and George probably go into the hardware store. Yes, sir. Do you have the Techno 3,000,010 part for us for a Series 2 spaceship? No,
we only have the Series 1. Sorry.
I'll take some copper wire then.
But apparently they didn't need the supplies, because at the end, the posse shoots down Frank's, like blows up his truck. I'm like, well, I guess we didn't need the stuff he was bringing back to them. Or Frank, for that matter. They didn't seem too concerned.
And did they plant a dead coyote just to make it seem like it was?
I don't know. That was a little. But they just keep taking over. So at the end, when Johnny goes inside the crater and they're all repairing the ship, they're all humans. Why do you need to become a human to fix a ship? Because more than likely, your physiology of the ship is designed for your original shape. It didn't make any sense.
Well, they were very concerned about freaking the humans out with their own appearance.
But they were already hiding.
But it kind of freaks you out when
you see someone
is you. Yeah.
Right. But or also like when the person is talking to you like, yes, 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 I can do that. Like, you know,
Let me stare directly into the sun without blinking. I am human. Well, at one point, he even realizes they're stealing his clothes. And I'm like, are they like back in the ship going, look at me, I am a human. Make fun. Ha ha. Yeah.
These clothes do not fit me at all.
So my
Where
son
is the ascot?
was so disappointed because everybody was still alive at the end. Like halfway through the movie, he's like, please let everyone be dead. I want this movie to be completely bonkers. And I was like, this is a rated G movie.
No,
like,
just Alien Frank was blown up and no one seemed to care.
Like, we can watch Nope after if you want to
if you want some bloodshed. Yeah. And we're talking about Ellen, freaking out over the Joshua tree. Then the little kid in the dime store outfit freaks her out when she answers the door.
She's very sensitive. She's a sensitive person.
I do want one of those Space Cadet helmets.
Yeah, and
by the way, can we just talk about the absolute sexism of how
you should be teaching school?
Yeah, well,
there's that. There's that, but also like the alien versions of all the men are still in their regular clothes, but the alien version of her is in like this clad in black, temptress outfit.
Well, that just shows the vanity of these aliens.
Yeah.
Ooh, I like that dress. Let's take that.
Well, that's what they went. And she could scamper, man. She disappeared across that desert floor pretty quickly.
Barbara Rush is who played Ellen, by the way, is still alive. She's 96 years old.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Damn.
And she was still in films up to a few years ago. She was still performing.
And let's talk about the other two women, Frank and George's wife and girlfriend, respectively. And I say that loosely because George's girlfriend appears to be some sort of prostitute or something.
She's like, they got the Hollywood bombshell type, right?
Because she says when they leave after their question, she looks at Johnny and says, bye. George is gone, but you look pretty good.
Call me when you get a paycheck.
And then she gets the picture credit at the end. I'm like, this girl that was in it for 2 seconds gets a picture credit.
Who has less lines than the wife character.
Yeah.
Right. And she didn't get a picture credit. That's one of those things where you can tell the studio's like, this person could be the next blah, blah, blah.
Yeah,
right?
maybe. Or she probably was sleeping at the director or something.
And what line did she have? George has quite the appetite before she gives Johnny the eye.
Ellen did get, Alien Ellen did get a laser wand, though. She got the cool.
She
weapon.
did.
Yeah, I don't know. It is nice to know that 92 degrees Fahrenheit is the perfect killing weather, by the way. We were told anything above 92, people go lose their minds.
Yeah, people get really irritated, as because Matt was getting irritated.
Speaking of which, Sheriff was a little hot-headed there.
Yeah, he was. Yes, he was.
Although he squished that rubber spider, and I'm like, dude, you're just proving John's point.
My son was so mad. He was like, they couldn't afford a real spider.
No. At least I can say that no real spiders. Well, we hope that coyote was not killed just for this prop.
Mm-hmm.
So, but what was with Ellen after she shot at Johnny? Then she like dives into the pool, and I'm like, what is she, like Ethel Merman all of a sudden? Like, what is going on here? 1,000 years to perfect space travel, and they have to land on this hillbilly redneck backwater.
Yeah, they're so self-impressed. Yeah, it's kind of an aside. Yeah, we landed here by accident.
Yeah.
Let's not talk about that.
Yeah, correct. Hey, listen, it took us 1,000 years to get this far.
This is like Kodos and Kang, really, from The Simpsons.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, our car broke down outside of Cleveland. Yeah, I do like it. At the end, Johnny's like, they'll be back. And I'm like, oh, you idiots, don't go back. You're insane. These people are nuts.
So Johnny at the end has to stop the posse from killing the aliens, because he wants to prove to the aliens that humanity is good. And in order to do that, like, just, to show your goodwill, release our hostages, please. Yeah. Doesn't stop the posse. And you know that it wouldn't.
No, but when the avalanche happens again, and they're like, are they all in there? And he's like, yeah. And he goes, oh, good. That's good. Guess that takes care of them. I'm like, no, they're still there.
But Johnny didn't tell the aliens that he was going to blow the mine. So what do they think? They're attacking us,
Yeah. I will tell you on the audio commentary, they do refer to these as xenomorphs. So long before aliens ever came around.
Ah.
Yes. A script written by Ray Bradbury, by the way.
Well,
And
it's based on his story.
Well, if you watch the commentary, there's some dissent because Harry Essex does get screenplay, but he'll admit in some interviews that he basically just took Bradbury's treatment, which was 111 pages, by the way.
Mhm.
Bradbury wrote 2 treatments, one for the studio and one for himself. And the studio said, we like yours better. So, yeah, Essex has come out and basically said, yeah, I just rewrote what you wrote. It's like, yeah.
And interestingly, Bradbury actually did 2 treatments, one where the aliens were unfriendly and one where they were friendly, which is what we see here. And they went with, he didn't have to argue it. They went with the friendly version.
It's interesting because in any subsequent alien movie, they're always the bad guys, right?
Yeah.
They're always here for nefarious purposes. I don't know if you're going to come all the way here to this planet.
So if this is a Cold War, if this is a Cold War allegory, this is getting something subversive out there. Yeah. Communists maybe aren't so bad. These invaders.
I don't know if I'd go that far.
Well, I think, he was trying to say something about xenophobia and like making assumptions about, people you don't know, basically.
Yeah, judging them based on their looks. He's like, you will not like us.
And
don't judge us based on it.
Yeah, you're not ready for us. We'll come back in like a million years. Well, even to this day, we wouldn't be. We'd be putting them all over Twitter and whatever.
Yeah, we can't even get along with each other. We're going to get along with some alien coming down.
If you're interested in the various versions of the treatments, there is a book that came out in 2003 that has 4 versions of the screen treatments. And it starts with a 37-page outline. It goes up to a 119-page story. And then he has an unpublished short story called A Matter of Taste, which was the inspiration for the treatments. And that's also in that edition. So if you're interested in Bradbury's evolution on this story and the various interpretations, that's something that you can pick up.
Interesting. So I do find this is one of the very first films that actually employed secret sets, scripts, and NDAs. They really filmed this under a level of secrecy. They didn't want any of this plot to get out.
And this is very timely that we're talking about it because just last month it had its 70th anniversary.
It's still got a lot to say. It's fun. The alien's cool, different. I don't think we've ever seen an alien like this. Actually, this is not the original alien design. The one for this island Earth is closer to, I think, what the original alien looked like, which is just, quadruped with the...
Yeah, because
big
from what Universal, the makeup department submitted 2 designs. One was this one, and one was the mutant from this island Earth. And they went with the minion kind of look instead, but they
I didn't even think of that.
But they put that other one in the file cabinet, we'll use this at some point, and they did. Yeah,
we just got a free design. We'll use them later.
Not a huge hit. It was released in June 5th, 1953. So it was summer entertainment. On an $800,000 budget, it made $1.6 million. It was that year's 75th biggest moneymaker.
Really?
So, yeah.
Oh, man.
Reviewers back then, too cool for school when it came to sci-fi stuff. The New York Times said, the adventure is merely mildly diverting, not stupendous. A contemporary review from Rotten Tomatoes, the film moves terribly slowly despite an 80-minute running time because of its overly simplistic plot with absolutely no surprises. See, this is, I think, harsh. Yeah. You got to put something in the context of its time, and I think it was enjoyable to watch anyway. It's a fun sci-fi creature feature.
I guess it makes sense that they never made a sequel based on the returns.
They did, as a matter of fact, make a sequel.
They did. Yes. It returned.
Are you ready for this? A TV movie was made in 1996.
96
called It Came from Outer Space 2, starring Brian Kerwin and Elizabeth Pena. Now, rather than a bona fide sequel, this was basically a remake of the original movie. but they just put 2 on the end of it, and it quickly fell into obscurity. I don't even know if you can get it anywhere to watch it now.
I did not even know that existed.
Yep.
There was
Elizabeth
one.
Pena, one of my all-time favorite actresses. I was such a huge fan of hers.
So this one's not part of your collection? No.
I'm surprised it didn't make its way on any of the Blu-ray
Mystery.
releases
Yeah.
or anything like that. The October 2016 Blu-ray release, though, did make available its original 3D version.
Ooh.
Yeah.
How do you wear glasses? I guess you have to wear 3D glasses.
Yeah, because you need the 3D TV and
Sure.
the glasses, the whole 9 yards.
The black and white kind of throws me, but I did read somewhere, and they mentioned it in the documentary as well, that Maury Amsterdam potentially as one of the military guys. Like, there's no official confirmation. It's like a walk-by scene. They're like,
Who's a comedian of the time.
yeah, may or may not have been him. So,
and we were talking about the small part that's played by George's girlfriend. Now, the actress who played George's girlfriend is Kathleen Hughes, and apparently she did get that picture credit at the end because Universal was grooming her to be the next Marilyn Monroe.
That's what I said. The next blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
there was a whole interesting series. Actually, if you're interested in this topic, I've mentioned this podcast before. You must remember this. And there's a series that Karina Longworth did called Dead Blondes, where she talks about this series of blondes from, the 30s forward who were, groomed by studios to like be a certain way, and then how each one that came after was supposed to be the next whatever.
Mhm.
And that had come right before them. And unfortunately, a lot of these women died tragically, which is why the series is called Dead Blondes. But it's pretty interesting if you are interested in that kind of really like sort of micro film history.
You must remember this.
Oh yeah, I love that podcast.
Yes.
She's doing an amazing series right now. She started with erotic 80s and now she's doing erotic 90s. Yeah, kind of talking about like the way sex is depicted on screen and how it changes from like the early 80s when you have these kind of like sex comedies up through like the very adult thrillers that were made in the 90s, like I'm kind of in a Joe Esterhaas period on the podcast right now. The basic instinct guy.
Yeah, it's interesting that with this Jennifer Lawrence movie that came out and this other one, Joyride, that there's this kind of the raunchy comedies making a little bit of a comeback here.
Yeah, I mean, I hope that she continues this series because it's such an interesting lens through which to view not just the films themselves, but kind of the culture around them and how people were talking about film and, different cultural issues, and particularly how actresses are perceived by the public when they do these different films. So it's such an interesting series. If you guys have never listened to You Must Remember This, this is a side recommendation. You really should be. It's such a great podcast.
You gave up your one shot.
No, I have other stuff.
All right, well, let's get to it then.
All right, well, what kind of buckets would we give?
Oh, I'm going a solid 4 on this. I did enjoy this. To revisit it, I was very happy. I'm a sucker for this, these Saturday morning monster movies kind of a thing. So yeah, he's pretty creative looking, this big. Yeah. Now I can't get the Minion visual out of my mind. So I'll roll my eye and laugh every time I see him. But
I think for me, this is a 3. It's fine. Like, I enjoy this type of thing, but I actually really I think it's being colored by the fact that I saw the musical, and the musical was extremely fun. I wish it was something that you guys would have access to, like if they had a filmed version of it or something, but it was so much fun.
And I'll give it 3.5. The bonus was that I'd never seen this before. So it was a first time watch and really enjoyed it. It's a lot of fun.
Wow. I can't believe that you've never seen it.
All right. So what else did we do this week?
All right. It sounds like Christina's got some recommendations.
Oh, I mean, what else did I do this week? I watched Dunkirk on the big screen again.
Oh, yes.
Which is why I didn't have time to go see Asteroid City. I just want to say, like, if you have the opportunity And I know that like not everybody has the same kind of access, but if you have a theater near you that re-releases a movie like this on the big screen, you should go and see it on the big screen. I can't say that enough. I know you can watch it at home. I know it's on, some streaming channel, but the sound design on this movie in particular, I think you're just not going to get that effect on TV. And part of that is because of the flattening of the sound that we discussed a couple weeks ago that a lot of
some people
streamers
have
do.
five channel surround sound.
Sure, some people do, but I don't think most people do. And I think that, it's such a completely different effect. My son had never seen this because my husband and I had seen it on the big screen several years ago, and we were like, we don't want you to watch it for the first time on the
Yeah.
TV. And we were so happy that it was in the theater. It's such a powerful experience. And
It's very immersive. It's Christopher Nolan, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
it's just a kind of a great film in and of itself. Again, you can talk about a guy who's got like a cast of characters that he
Mhm.
always works with and like
Yeah.
actors who keep returning to him
Well,
because
we'll be talking about him in a couple weeks.
watching it on the big screen, the way it's meant to be seen with the sound, the way it's meant to be heard, really, really matters, and I wish people would, I think, embrace the theater experience more in a general sense. This is my plea to people to go to the movies, experience films the way they're meant to be seen, not on your little TV with your tinny sound.
Well, isn't this why theaters created 3D back in the day? Because they were so afraid that no one would ever want to go into theater again because you got TV at home now.
Right. And I want people to go to the movies. That is my what else
Well, I think
that
we
I
all
did
do.
this week.
I think
I
we
want
all
people
do.
to go to the movies
Yeah.
and go see film on the big screen because it matters.
Do you want me to go next, Jim? Netflix just dropped the new animated movie, Nimona.
Oh, my son loves this graphic
Okay.
novel.
All right.
Yeah.
So based on the graphic novel by N.D. Stevenson, we watched it as a family last night. And I have to tell you that this movie is spectacular. This is incredibly enjoyable. Chloe Grace Moretz and Riz Ahmed play the two main characters. I can only describe the world building as like a futuristic medieval fantasy. It's a mix of future, they're knights, but they're future knights. They don't ride horses. They ride like these speeder bike type of things. This has been quite an issue for a while because it actually started out with Blue Sky Studios. And then when Disney bought out Fox Animation, who had previously bought out Blue Sky, they killed it. So in 2021, it was dead in the water. And then this studio, Annapurna Pictures, which I think they're more like video game, picked it up, and it was just released. This has a 100% rating on Rotten Tomatoes right now. And it is directed by Nick Bruno, who happens to be my neighbor down the street. So if you watch the preview on Netflix, you kind of think you know what you're getting. I'm not going to give too much away because if you're going to watch this, just experience it. But Nimona, who is Chloe Moritz's character, is a shapeshifter. And they play that up big time in the trailers. And when we first watched the trailers, my son's like, oh, it's Beast Boy from, Teen Titans, but she's pink, not green. But there's a lot more going on. And anytime that you can somehow interject the Banana Splits theme song into your movie, I'm all on board. Fantastic. Absolutely. I can't say enough good things about this. Blown away by it. So very, very enjoyable. Although I will give you a trigger warning right now. Anybody listening, there is same-sex romance. And I will say Nimona's character really is a metaphor for gender fluidity and nonconformity. But having said that, we as a family love this movie. Fantastic. Gorgeous to look at. Hysterical in spots. Very, very enjoyable. Well done.
And this is on Netflix.
It just dropped on Netflix.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah.
Now my Shudder subscription is paying for itself whenever Joe Bob season rolls around during the year, because I watch that every week when he's on. It's maybe a 12-week series that starts late spring and goes into early summer.
Are you on Twitter? chatting it up whenever these new movies, because I see it all over Facebook and social media that, people are complaining, I can't believe this is the movie Joe Bob picked and I don't like this, or I love it, kind of a thing. So it's a lot.
Sometimes
it seems to be a lot of interaction.
I can't believe
with his
someone's
audience.
taste is not exactly the same as
correct,
mine.
right? and I must let everybody know that I don't approve of this movie. Why is he showing this movie?
When it's live on Shudder on Friday nights, I never get the chance to watch it because it starts at 9 and it's 2 movies, and he talks at length about each one during the breaks. So it's like a good 4.5 hour
so you're
odyssey.
Going to like 2? What? Really?
So if you watch it live, but it shows up so you can watch it streaming on Sunday. So 2 days later, it appears. So that's when I watch it. And I watch it, cut up during the week. So last week, he showed the second movie that he showed was Amsterdamned. So Amsterdamned, which is a great title in itself. And it's Dutch director Dick Maas. It's about a killer that's a scuba diver that comes up out of the canals and kills people and goes back into the canals. It's a fun movie. It's stupid, but it's fun. And it's got a first-class stunt coordinator who worked on all the James Bond movies, Vic Armstrong. And there is an amazing boat chase through a speedboat chase through the canals that rivals Live and Let Die. Fun movie, Amsterdam. And I also want to mention, because we covered 1917 eons ago, right? Not the year itself, but the movie.
Sometimes feels like we've been.
My son's a huge Simpsons fan, as we all are in this household. And we were watching a Simpsons episode from the past couple of years, and there was a little vignette that they had in one episode of Homer Simpson going to sleep on the roof of his house, and he says, "Tonight, I'm going to dream of being a World War I flying ace." So he sleeps just like Snoopy would.
Snoopy, right.
On the roof of the house. And suddenly he's in the dream and he's on a mini version of his house like Snoopy, and he's and suddenly you cut to an animated scene just like from 1917 where our 2 characters are running because they see Homer in his house go down behind the hill, and they're looking behind the hill. Suddenly Homer comes up from the hill and is coming right to camera, just like in the movie, and crashes. And that's the end of the vignette. And I just thought it was brilliant. So there you have it. That's what I did this week.
Sounds like they're stepping on Family Guy's toes with those cutaways.
So, all right. So next week.
Wow.
Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny.
I'm not a big fan of this title, but I'm on board.
A little better than Crystal Skull, I would think. I think I like it better than that, name-wise, yeah.
I think Crystal Skull has a little more...
Crystal Skull has a stink to it at this point.
You've seen the movie. That's because you've seen the movie. That's like, it's the Phantom Menace. It's like, what is this, a Scooby-Doo episode? So Dial of Destiny does nothing for me.
I mean, I'm hopeful for 2 reasons. Number one, because every other Indiana Jones movie is a good one. So 1 and 3, this is 5. So hopefully it will be good. But also because James Mangold directed it.
Yeah.
And I'm
actually very excited.
Logan.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. That's basically been my big talking up point, is the fact that he did such a great job with Logan and the end of that character. So, stay off social media. That's all I got to say, because there's a lot of opinions out there right now.
Oh, have you guys gone yet?
No.
Nope.
I'll go this week.
This week.
Yep.
And along with Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny,
an even longer title,
The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai Across the Eighth Dimension.
Take a breath.
We can just call it Buckaroo Banzai, though.
Moving forward
for our purposes.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah. So after that title, there's nothing else that fits on that movie poster.
No, this is a classic Drew Struzan poster as well, correct?
Oh, Drew Struzan was all over the 80s.
Yeah.
Indiana Jones, he was, you name it. Yeah.
Peter Weller in his, not so skinny tie, I guess. I'm looking at it right now, because that's the whole conceit, right? That these guys are a rock band.
Or a rock band. He's he's got multi hyphenated titles.
Yeah, there's a lot going on in Buckaroo Banzai that we will unload next week.
Ooh, I have not seen this in a very long time.
Me neither.
This is one of my husband's all-time favorite
Oh
movies.
no, do we need to bring him on board next week?
I know he should like sub
Guest
in for me in
host.
the
I know.
second half.
Are you
He's-
gonna
he's like-
represent for him?
He's like your son, just off screen, handing you notes. Make
I
sure you
know.
mention this. Make
My
sure you
son does
mention
that
this.
sometimes when
Yes, I
I'm
know.
on here. He's like,
know,
here, have a
that's why I'm-
post-it with my
Yep.
opinion.
The last time we spoke of a movie that your husband loved, it was that Mystery Science Theater. What was the name of it?
Prisoner of the Lost Universe.
Yes.
I wasn't here when you guys
You were
did
not
that.
here. You were
Yeah.
conveniently not here.
Yeah.
Mhm.
The one thing you could have really just torn into.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm just not gonna be here for that. Well played, by the way. Keep the peace in the family. Yep. So yeah, this is definitely one of those movies. I read the Marvel comic long before I ever saw the actual movie.
Now, I think I did see this in the theater, as a matter of fact. Very little memory of it, though. So we'll see. We'll
There might be
see.
a reason for that. I guess we'll get there next week. So,
All right, well,
does that mean
thanks.
I'm on concessions?
Yes, you're
you're-
buying. You're buying at the concession stand.
I think
next
I already
week.
know what I'm gonna do,
All right then.
just based on these two movies.
I hope
Okay.
it's a very adventurous candy.
Oh, hidden treasures, baby.
Yeah, and speaking of that, I will put up a picture of the UFO candy on our Twitter.
Yes, I gotta check that out.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, thanks for listening.
All right. Thank
Thank you.
you.
Yes. Bye.
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 Hello, everybody. If you liked the podcast you just heard, then please follow TMI on all of our social media outlets. First and foremost, email us at tmipodcast2018@gmail.com. That is tmipodcast2018@gmail.com.
And you can follow us on Twitter at TMI_podcast 2018. Stop over, say hi, give us a compliment. We'd love to hear from you.
Awesome. Make sure you follow us on Instagram as well, which is also TMI_podcast 2018.
And of course, we are on Facebook, facebook.com/TMI Podcast 2018. And it should be noted, we also have a community page, so join the forum.
And if you like to watch YouTube, you can see us at TMI Podcast 2018, all one word. Look for the popcorn bucket.
Popcorn bucket. Or you could just go to our website, which has every link there, TMIconfessionalspodcast.com. And we'll see you at the concession stand.
We'll save some popcorn for you.
As we mentioned, as another excuse not to show the alien, very conveniently, they can shapeshift. So you can watch your actors and look at the alien without actually having to look at
And I
the
thought they did a
alien.
pretty good job of pretending that they weren't human.
Yeah, they were talking like they were in a Wes Anderson movie, actually.